My name's Jessie.
I'm Bobby.
And we have a 11-month-old, so just one little boy. We started when he was maybe 3 or 4 weeks old is when we started. So right out of the guns. Obviously, it's completely informed our experience of being parents because it's sort of fortunately all we know in a way.
We're first-time parents. Jessie's the first in her generation on her side of the family to have a baby. I have nieces and nephews, but they're on the other side of the Atlantic, so we're both completely naive.
And I've never touched a baby until I had one. It has given me so much confidence, the way it has empowered me to be able to make choices from not always a place of fear. Having a baby and being a first-time parent, the intersection of that is can be quite explosive. Obviously, when you have a baby, it's so hard to know what to expect any moment of any day. And having sort of the consistency of once a week, we see Jeff at 7 o'clock or 2 o'clock or whenever, we did it, having that as just a marker every week was just so grounding fundamentally, knowing one thing that we could expect and being able to talk about whatever we were obsessed with at that given week without feeling sort of guilty, or we're trying to get our pediatrician to stick with us for 5 more minutes in the office, or trying to get a doctor to think about Carlo or us holistically as a family and not just his milestones or whatever. That was very grounding for me. And, we talked about information specific that enabled me to, not as much as I would always but, at times be able to make decisions that felt informed. And that in turn made me feel more confident, I think, as a new mother.
Yeah, I would say it was just very reassuring. It's very reassuring to have a pediatrician on call, a weekly check-in. I think when you first come out of the hospital, it's somewhat unnerving to realize that you aren't seeing practitioners very often. Once every 3 months, your pediatrician, and that's it. So it's, you do feel like you're thrown in at the deep end. Well, this feels a little bit like having water wings for what is a very kind of unsettling, stormy, deep water that you're chucked into. Very reassuring and stabilizing to have this weekly check-in.
Yeah. And I would say too, being pregnant, there's so much attention on you, and there's all these practitioners, and if you're like me, you're acupuncturist and other people really caring for you. And then you have the baby, and you and everyone else is appropriately so caring for the baby. But I think what this coaching brought to my experience is some attention and care for us as the caregivers. And that was really nourishing in sort of a implicit way that I don't think I would have put together until several months into it. What a fortunate experience to have.
I mean, I would say sleep was the recurring thing.
We've just tortured Jeff with sleep stuff every week when we think we're done with it. We're not. So yeah, that was definitely the through line. And there were some times when he wasn't gaining weight as much as it seemed like he should be. And so we dealt with some feeding issues. It's not just what Jeff was able to bring as both a medical practitioner and a parent and just a smart, person who we admire, but he got to know us as parents. And so he's speaking to us with that sort of informed filter in a way that no matter how good our relationship is with our pediatrician in New York, she doesn't have that relationship with us. There's no one really that knows both us sort of independently and us as parents, and then our son in the same way. There's a lot of dimension to it, I think.
It's definitely a coming together of both his scientific background and training with this sort of personal, holistic approach that takes into account both the science of medicine and then the human side of the psychology of being a person, and then bringing those two things together.
We had sleep, we had some feeding stuff, and something that he really helped with that I can't really think of functioning in another relationship is helping me get over the hurdle of hiring childcare, which was really emotionally and logistically challenging. Probably logistically challenging because it was emotionally challenging, but again, being able to tackle that with someone who I trusted, understood what, had our baby's well-being in mind from an informed perspective. That was really useful. And again, not something that I could bring to our pediatrician in New York and think that they would have the time for it, or, I can talk to my friends about it, but, they have a limited perspective. So that was very helpful. And I think he even just framed the value of how regulating ourselves will help regulate Carlo. So even just as a framework, I think that was really foundational. But, like Bobby was saying, it's very easy for me to get worried. If he's not sleeping, it means, he's not developing. And then quickly it goes to he has a metabolic disorder and he's probably an alien, I can really spin out pretty quick. And just, having sound bites that he would say to us, being able to sort of return to those. Oh, I remember we talked about this. That's a touchstone. And if Carlo's crying for 20 minutes, it's okay. He's fed, he's clean, it's okay. When we were having some feeding challenges, him reassuring us that if he's hungry, he's gonna eat. And, him saying that to me and knowing how worried I get and knowing that color in the scenario was specifically reassuring in a way I don't think I could have been reassured from anyone else. Sessions were an hour. Yeah, about an hour, which was a nice time to sort of cover, we check in, what's been going on this week, how's Carlo? Is he sleeping? No. Okay, well, let's talk about it. Checking in how we are doing. And then he always made sure to end, do you have any questions, where I could be he has a new freckle. Is he okay? We were always together, with the exception of a couple of times when Bobby was traveling or something like that. It provided again, just sort of an anchor to the week. And I don't know, there's something different between us talking about parenting, whether it's from a philosophical perspective or just admin, versus slowing down a little bit to do that with essentially a supervisor. And so it just sort of felt it yielded something more intentional from doing it together. And because we were there together, it wasn't oh, I'm communicating something that I heard, we were all firsthand witnesses. And I think that's just an efficient way to be. I have my close girlfriends in my ear, and then I'm on a WhatsApp group with 300 mothers in my neighborhood. It's whatever Instagram is feeding me, and then it's oh, that book looks interesting, I'll read that. And so there's a lot, and it's not very filtered, and a lot of noise. Being able again to speak with one person that is informed in the way that matters to me is just it dilutes a lot of that.
Yeah, I definitely recommend coaching with Jeff and beyond. I mean, it's kind of, if you've ever done therapy, whether that be individual therapy, couples therapy, or career coaching, it's in the same bracket, but this is parent therapy, and if you're uncertain, this is a really good way to help get the car rolling, I suppose. Yeah,
I mean, I would 1,000,000% recommend it. I think just fundamentally, if it's a resource that's available to anyone, I think it, I know I keep returning to this, but just an anchor of stability within so much that's unpredictable and confusing. And then specifically with Jeff, he's just a pleasure to hang out with every week. Even if he was just blowing smoke up our ass, but he's fun, he's warm, he's smart, and that interpersonal attunement makes a real difference, because I think, this is, it's vulnerable territory, whether because of what it may bring up for you or what you're afraid it's revealing about you. And I think he does a really wonderful job of holding that without, being precious or weird. It feels really connecting. And I think that in itself, again, is a nice thing to have in this first year phase where it's unclear what your brain and your body's doing.